Hello, everyone. My name is Kristen Kayla. I am the host of the webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. I have Allison King here with me today. She's going to present a wonderful topic, so thank you so much for joining us. I just want to go through a few housekeeping rules before we get started. All lines have been muted to avoid any background noise. And if you look at the screen here, it shows the call-in number for the webinar today and how you can join just by clicking the icons on your screen if you want to call in to the webinar, if you want the system to call you back, or if you want to use your computer audio, that's fine as well. Allison, if you could please switch slides. All right, so please go ahead and chat me throughout this presentation if you have any questions. You'll see the chat function on the toolbar on your screen. So go ahead and look for my name, Kristen Kayla, and go ahead and send me a chat if you have any questions or comments throughout the presentation. Next slide, please. All right, well, great. Thank you so much, Allison, for presenting today. If you want to give a little bit of background, what you do here at HealthNet, and then you can take it away. And this presentation is being recorded, so I will send out the recording link tomorrow, along with a list of resources that Allison will be covering throughout her presentation today. All right, thank you again, Allison.
Sure, thank you, Kristen. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Allison King, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am actually a clinical program manager at Managed Health Network at MHN, who's the behavioral health provider for HealthNet. I work specifically for the University of California Blue and Gold line of business, but obviously this presentation is for everyone. First, I want to say thank you for showing up, not for me, but for yourself. And that's basically what this presentation is going to be about. It's about showing up for ourselves in a holistic, comprehensive way as much as possible, so we can build resilience and endurance, which clearly we all need that right now in our lives, not only to get through the present moment and move us forward into 2021, but throughout our lives. So for some of us right now, this seemingly never-ending new normal is what people have been calling it. It really requires a certain level of acrobatics, work, kids and online learning, keeping our household afloat. Every day kind of feels like a juggling act, and sometimes it feels like Groundhog Day. Although things are opening up now, and it's starting to, for a lot of us, it's starting to bring us back to shifting into a different kind of new normal. For others of us, it might not be very chaotic, but we may be feeling lonely or unmotivated and just trying to endure that. We might be feeling purposeless sometimes. The common denominator, I think, in all of this is disequilibrium, which requires all of us to learn how to continually recalibrate. That's kind of how I describe it. So sometimes recalibrating is needed daily, or sometimes even moment to moment. And I'm even going to venture to say now, sometimes breath by breath, depending on what's going on for us that particular day or that particular moment. The main goal of the presentation today is to provide some really specific or concrete ways to build resilience and endurance with a focus on our whole self, so we can create a more consistent homeostasis in our lives. So during this pandemic age, whether we're caring for our family or our community or doing our jobs, a certain level of selflessness and flexibility have become requirements. Things really seem to be in like a continual flux, and we kind of just have to learn how to roll with it, which hopefully we all have learned how to do to a certain extent by now. What we really needed is not only a high level of selflessness and flexibility, but strength, balance, and endurance. So including these three additional things in the equation adds protective layers to our health and well-being and can help us from going over the edge. So How do we do this? How do we build in all these protective layers? Through developing resilience. First, I want to acknowledge that this word, and maybe even the concept, has become a little bit cliche recently, but I still think it's incredibly important to continue to talk about it and keep it on the forefront of everyone's mind, because it's something we need to work on continually throughout our lives. So what is it? And this is probably a review for a lot of you, but what it is maintaining flexibility and balance in life as you deal with stressful circumstances and any kind of traumatic life events that you experience. It's adapting to adversity, and it's also called the ability to bounce back. It's also a feeling of effectiveness and, feeling capable of handling uncertainty. So it's also a sense that we feel about ourselves. And it's also behavior, thoughts, and actions that can be learned and developed. So that's the good news, that we can continue to work on it and develop it throughout our lives. So what it is not is a characteristic or personality trait, which is good to know. So as I said, it's something that we can learn to do and learn to develop. So I like to think of it like a muscle. Resilience is, it's kind of like a muscle. You have to dedicate time and energy into developing it and keeping it conditioned, right? So when we have to flex it, we're ready and able to use those muscles. So think of the analogy of riding a crowded bus when there's nowhere to sit, or a subway. If there's a quick stop or turn, don't have anything to hold on to. We have to keep our knees bent. We have to use our thighs. We have to stabilize our trunk or our torso with our core muscles to keep from falling down. So for me, this is, the way I like to think about it, it's very similar to the concept of resilience. And now, given the link to the pandemic, we have to have endurance, something that can only be achieved if the resilience muscles are well conditioned. You can't really run a marathon, right, unless your muscles, which, marathon requires endurance, unless your muscles have been well conditioned. So what specifically can we do to build our resilience muscle? First, I want to look at a model for resilience. So there's a lot of different models on resilience out there. If you Google it, you'll see all different kinds of things. I like this one because it's straightforward and it's simple, and it aligns with the concept of whole person self-care, which I'll get to in a few minutes. So the idea here is that you have all these different spheres in your life and of who you are that are going to help build your resilience. Having some sort of meaning, creating meaning in life, cultivating positive emotions, having social support, this is huge, coping, effective, healthy coping, and taking care of our physical well-being. So along with lots of different models, there's lots of different exercises and activities for building resilience out there. And I've included some links at the end of the presentation, and as Kristen said, she's going to send out a document that has all the resources in it as well, so you all can access them. But honestly, it can feel really overwhelming as to where to start to help build our resilience. When talking about what we can do to build our resilience, especially during adversity, it's not as simple as saying, do these 10 things every day, even though we all like those listicles, right? Do these 10 things every day and you will become more resilient. Instead, it's really about doing a variety of different things with consistency to help get through this difficult time. And that the end result will be a greater level of resilience. But just like I said about the building the muscle strength, figuring out what works best for you may require, each person's individual, right? So it may require some experimenting. And it's dynamic, meaning that it can shift depending on the circumstance. For example, some people like swimming, right? Others like running or hiking or going to the gym, but gyms might not be so accessible right now. Or maybe we can't afford the membership because our partner or spouse lost their job and we're living on one income. The point is that finding what works for you at different times in life is a personal, very personal, and a very fluid practice. Next I'm gonna present a couple of concrete activities that might be helpful in getting you started on this concept of building resilience. So the first one, cultivating positive emotions. How does one do that? That sounds like it's challenging. Really, one way of doing it is by changing the narrative. So when I was in social work school, they drilled into our heads that the word crisis in Chinese is made of two characters, danger and opportunity. I later found out that this was, and I really, put my hooks in this one, really thinking it was fabulous. I later found out that this is linguistically not so accurate, but conceptually, it makes sense. That's why we have cliche sayings like, with every good, there's a bad. Every dark cloud has a silver lining. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So the first suggested activity here helps move us from the glass is half empty to the glass is half full perspective. It's basically, it is a journaling exercise, which some people really have a challenge getting started on. But all you really need is 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. I suggest doing it in the morning if possible to help frame your day. You can start with what I call downloading what you're feeling onto paper. If you don't have time or this sounds overwhelming, you can just write down a few feeling words themselves just to do that downloading, like angry, scared, sad, frustrated, whatever you're feeling in general, or maybe just at that particular moment. Followed by, and this is the most important part, 2 or 3 positive things. For example, what's happening around you in your personal sphere that's good? What are you learning during this time about yourself, about life, about the world? What opportunities has the pandemic created for you? What do you love or what's bringing you joy these days in your life? And of course, one thing that's often talked about is what are you grateful for? So journaling like this both acknowledges our emotional experience, which is really important. We don't want to push it away because it's important to acknowledge our feelings. We need to name it to tame it, as Daniel Siegel likes to say, and begins to rewire our thought patterns. It actually helps to rewire neural pathways in the brain. I'm not going to get into the research here, but studies have shown that people who engage in therapeutic writing exercises like this have an increased sense of well-being and happiness months later. I'm going to move on to the second one here, which is finding meaning in life. So Dan Buettner, the guy who came up with blue zones, and if you don't know what those are, I encourage you to look it up, did research on longevity around the world and found that several reasons that women in Okinawa, Japan, have such long lifespans is because they have a strong sense of purpose. Apparently, Okinawans are known for pursuing ikigai. I apologize if I did not pronounce it correctly, which is a concept that means reason for being or reason for waking up in the morning. So for a lot of us, if we were lucky enough to have a sense of purpose pre-pandemic, we may have lost touch with it, which is totally normal in times of crisis, especially when the crisis is chronic. For others, maybe we didn't have a sense of purpose or even know we needed one, but we're feeling empty and may really need something to give our lives meaning. I embedded some links to articles from UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center magazine, which is my new favorite. As you can see, one of them is a listicle because it says 7 ways to find your purpose in life. And these will be sent to you, as I said, later. You can have access to these when Kristen sends out the link in the recordings. Another way of creating meaning in life is to engage in acts of kindness. It could be random, like helping a neighbor by offering to pick up things at the store. Or recently, one of my new favorite things is putting away grocery carts in the in parking lots, because so many people leave them scattered. I'll make a conscious effort to put away mine and one other. Or something more structured, like volunteering. I'll give another personal example. At the beginning of the pandemic, I started volunteering for Meals on Wheels, so delivering meals to homebound older adults and disabled folks in my community. And that really helped me. You know, it was only an hour a week that I was dedicating, one lunch hour on Fridays. And it, you know, I believe giving is receiving. So that really helped me to stay connected to what's important to me. So those are just some examples. And the third one here is social. So before the pandemic, there was a quiet epidemic happening all around, which I didn't really think about that much until the pandemic. This epidemic was loneliness. In a survey in 2019 of 20,000 adults, about half of the respondents said that they felt lonely some or all of the time. I thought that was really high. And not a surprise, there's other research has shown that social isolation and loneliness has a very high correlation to mental health conditions, as we all know, like depression, anxiety, substance abuse, what I call the mental health trifecta these days. And now with the pandemic, the probability of a new kind of loneliness is really, it's very real. Really one of the most reliable paths to emotional wellness is through our relationships, through connection. I mean, even for introverts, human connection is not optional. It's required. Humans, we're social animals, and we need it to survive. In this time of isolation, we really need to make sure that we stay connected. There's incredible convenience and efficiency to texting. I'm all for it, as well as communicating, and other means, through posts on social media, DMing and everything that we do, but they limit true personal connection and really don't necessarily alleviate our sense of isolation and loneliness. So here is a simple suggestion. If you're thinking about someone in your life, pick up the phone. Make some time to pick up the phone. The happy surprise of a random call or video, telephone call, voice to voice, or video call, can leave both you as the caller and the receiver feeling really connected and happy. In the alternative, and I try to do this at least once a week, I schedule time with a friend or a family member, either for a phone or video call, or for a masked walk outside if possible. I try to schedule some of that stuff in. It's not always easy. I'm not able to do it every week, but I do it when I can. If you're looking for ways to meet new people with common interests, because I know this has been brought up in the past when I've given this presentation, think about joining an online group. Meetup.com is an example. They have a lot of interesting finds there, like book clubs, mom groups, mom clubs, lifestyle groups. So these are just some suggestions to get you on the path to thinking about ways to build resilience. Okay, so this is not specifically listed on the resilience model that I showed, but mindful meditation would fall into several of those spheres, like coping and positive emotions. Luckily, the concept of mindfulness is everywhere right now. There's kind of like a mindfulness zeitgeist going on. So I thought I'd just take a few minutes to put a plug in for it and explain it a little bit, because I think it gets confusing to people about the difference between mindfulness and meditation and mindful meditation. So mindfulness basically comes from an age-old Buddhist practice with the religious aspects taken out. And there's loads of research to validate its effectiveness. The terms mindfulness and meditation are often used interchangeably, as I said, so I thought I might talk about them a little bit more here. So mindfulness is basically being fully present and engaged in whatever you're doing at that moment, free from judgment, free from distraction, and being aware of coming into awareness of our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them. It's difficult, it's a skill, it takes practice. Meditation is a specific type of activity, the formal practice of finding inner peace and calm by reducing mental chatter. And as you can see in the middle there, this is the merging of the two. Mindful meditation is moment-to-moment awareness that one gains through the activity of meditation. So basically, mindfulness is a psychological state of awareness, and meditation is only one of the many ways to tap into it. For example, there's mindful housework, believe it or not, mindful walking, mindful eating, and there's my favorite, like mindful movement, like yoga, which has so many benefits with its holistic, mind, body, spirit practice. It would need its own presentation. Obviously, it's outside of the scope of what we're doing. Mindful meditation is not about shutting the brain down. It's more about mono versus multitasking. Really, it's about acknowledging the mind at work, where it's going, what it's doing, non-judgmentally, and consciously refocusing our attention on the present moment and paying attention to our breath, which can help be our barometer. That can be like our metronome, so to speak, and paying attention to our senses. It helps root us and ground us in the present moment. Mindful meditation tangibly reduces stress, meaning you can feel it at work when you engage in it. And it's an evidence-based practice, which, as mentioned before, has shown through loads of studies the many ways it's good for your mental and physical health. Here's a taster of some of the research of the benefits of it on a consistent basis. Reduce stress, a decrease in emotional reactivity, which is learning how to respond to things, not be emotionally reactive to things. Improved self-reflection and insight, improved memory, focus, improved cognitive flexibility and processing speed. It slows cognitive decline, which I was really interested to learn when I did more research about it last year. Even for those suffering from Alzheimer's, it can help reduce the decline, slow it down a little bit. It creates an improved overall sense of well-being. And then it does other things like lowers your blood pressure, reduces the risk of heart disease, improves our immune system functioning, reduces cell aging. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on about the mind, body, spirit impact of mindful meditation. Really, what it is it's preventative medicine, and I highly recommend it. And listen, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute because I've already been on it, but I'm going to go on it for one more minute, which is it only takes a minimum of 5 to 10 minutes a day on a consistent basis to reap the benefits of it, which I just did a whole laundry list of. If we have enough time to check our social media, we have enough time to use a mindful meditation or a meditation app. And I have some listed at the end of the presentation as well, which I believe Kristen is going to have on that document she sends out. Okay, so most of us don't realize that engaging in self-care is really the same thing as building resilience. Although the concept of self-care is theoretically simple, it's something we often overlook until we're just flat out, until we're entirely depleted. So what is it? It's very deliberate. It's deliberate activities we consciously engage in to take care of ourselves. And why do we need it? As I just mentioned, it's the key to building resilience and creating a balanced life. It's necessary to reduce stress and anxiety and depression. Required to avoid burnout or compassion fatigue, especially for those of us who are on the front lines or serving others. And really, it's needed daily, especially right now. So just like resilience, there's a lot of different models out there to conceptualize self-care. The model I'm presenting here is what I call whole person self-care. And again, you can look this up online and you can see all different kinds of models for this. The idea is really to develop daily practices to attend to each domain of our life as equally as possible to create a balanced life. We'll touch on a couple of the domains in a minute, but I wanted to quickly talk about spiritual, which relates to meaning in life, which I talked about a few minutes ago. Obviously, a discussion about spirituality is outside of the scope of this presentation, but I just wanted to highlight it because religion and spirituality are not necessarily one and the same. If you have a spiritual practice, it's really important to attend to that part of ourselves right now. Specifically because spirituality helps bring a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to our lives. If you don't have a spiritual practice, it may be a good time just to think about, maybe when you're journaling even, about what spirituality means to you, because big existential questions like, why is this happening? What is my purpose in life? What's going on? All of these things come up in times of crisis. Okay, so first and foremost, in terms of building resilience and engaging in self-care, we have to have a daily life routine. It's our foundation. Think about building a house. It's your foundation. Hopefully, you all have found a routine that works for you, and if and when it stops working, you're able to make some adjustments. That's that flexibility, right? And that recalibrating that we always have to be doing right now. Having a daily rhythm grounds us and helps create a sense of normalcy, and self-care needs to be built into that routine. But before we look at any of these further, when I gave this presentation early on in the pandemic, someone said, "This seems like so much. What if all you can do is nothing?" We all feel like that sometimes, and my response is we need to listen to ourselves. Sometimes doing nothing is self-care. I read something a little while ago that said something to the effect of, if all you've accomplished this last year is keeping your sanity, that's a lot. So that being said, laying on the couch and binging on Netflix may be exactly what we need at certain times. And actually, unknowingly, it happens to hit both the biological and psychological domains of self-care. And if you add in watching with a friend, either with you in person or virtually, you're tapping into the social domain as well. But remember, this is about balance in life. And if we find ourselves unable to activate at all, that's when we know something is wrong. So let's look at these a little bit. So biological. So here's the classic concepts of the biological domain for self-care. So making sure we're getting our regular medical care, and hopefully people have been doing that, whether virtually or now that things are opening up, are making sure to take care of getting all of their healthcare needs attended to. Having a healthy diet, exercising, getting enough rest and sleep. So these are the classic concepts when we talk about the biological domain. So how do you reframe this into a daily doable practice? So it's really what I call it is called reframing it, right? So looking at it from a different perspective or a different angle. Taking your multivitamins, grabbing an apple one day rather than a cookie, setting a timer and doing squats and push-ups a couple times a day. I actually know somebody who does this. I don't, but some people do this. They build it into their day. Turning off the phone or your social media. 30 minutes to an hour before bed. So these might be things that you're already engaging in. And if you're not, then, there's just some things to consider. But you can kind of check that biological domain, check that box a little bit that you're doing some of these things for yourself. Psychological, as I mentioned before, mindful meditation, spending some time in nature, that's a really hugely important one. It gives you perspective about yourself and the world and life. Engaging in your hobbies, spending some time with your pets. I was joking before we started. I had to feed my cat and lock my dogs out because our pets, if we have pets at home, they're part of our daily flow now. Positive self-affirmations. I love those. I have actually some that are on Post-its on my monitors here. The ones I've been enjoying recently are, it's very simple. Happiness is my superpower. Honesty and vulnerability are my superpowers. Obviously, I've been interested in superpowers lately. So just posting something in your view, so you can just have a glance at it from time to time. And then journaling, like I mentioned. So those are some, and then here's some ways to reframe it into being more achievable. As I mentioned before, using a meditation app, a few minutes a day. It's usually recommended the same time each day to create a routine and a balance. Even just closing your eyes and taking 5 deep breaths on a regular basis. I do that regularly when I find myself getting a little bit edgy or activated about something. I can sense it, and I take those 5 deep, 10 deep breaths. Going outside for a minute, looking at the sun and the sky. Petting your pet, just stopping and, petting your cat or your dog or whatever you have. Just communing with your animal for a moment can be really healthy. And as I said, writing down inspirational quotes and putting them in your own view. Social, the classic concept, spending time with friends, right? So we've been hopefully doing that throughout the pandemic, either in some sort of a distanced way or by, video conferencing or spending time on the phone. We can still be doing that. And obviously using social media is a really good way to stay connected, but needing it to be balanced. And then spiritual, which I mentioned. So keeping a spiritual practice if you have it, or developing one if you don't have one, whatever that means to you, it's very personal. Some ways to do this, just on a regular sort of, routine basis, could be just setting an intention for the day each morning, practicing gratitude and giving thanks before you eat. And also the psychological domain is another way to really tap in, the inspirational quotes and such, in terms of tapping into that domain. So, some of these practices come really easily and naturally, and others take a lot of cultivating. And I think all of us are guilty of telling ourselves or being in a situation of not having enough time. It doesn't necessarily, and this is the message I'm trying to send, is it doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time. The idea is if we redefine and reframe what self-care is and begin to practice it daily, it feels manageable and becomes a habit. It becomes integrated. So it doesn't have to be huge things like going on a vacation. That's amazing self-care, and we all want to be doing that, right? Or getting a massage, fabulous self-care. This is more about building small things in these different domains on a daily basis and integrating it into how we function and how we operate. Okay, so going back to that example of doing nothing. Knowing when we've reached the tipping point is super important, and having what I call a self-care safety plan is a really good idea. So I like to think of it like emergency preparedness, like a fire escape map at an office building, or an earthquake kit if you have that at home. So as you can see here for the biological, if for more than like 2 weeks, if you see that you or someone in your life is having difficulty with sleeping, a significant change in their sleeping or in their eating patterns, or a lot of trouble concentrating, or frequent headaches or stomach aches, really what you want to do is start by consulting with your doctor. Right? That's the first step. Psychological, if you have any of what I just mentioned above, and an increased use of substances, or excessive worry or sadness or despair, being irritable or being on edge a lot of the time, avoiding activities that you used to enjoy in the past, that's when you'd want to reach out for behavioral health support. Excuse me. And then social, if lasting more than a couple of weeks, If find yourself or someone you love withdrawing emotionally, avoiding contact with loved ones, or self-isolating, again, that's a time when you would want to think about or reach out for behavioral health support. And then spiritual, if you feel hopeless, loss of hope, loss of faith, questioning your belief system, feeling lost or purposeless. So this isn't a panacea, but there's a lot of self-help books and literature out there which can be super supportive in helping prop people up and get them through those difficult times. Consulting with your spiritual advisor or religious advisor if you have one, or contacting others in your practice community, your spiritual and religious practice community if you have one. So these were all, what I have here is really designed for adults. So I'm just going to list off a couple of things you want to look at or pay attention to in children and adolescents. So for littler ones, developmental regression, like a lot of toileting accidents or bed wetting, when they're past that phase of development. That's something that you might really want to pay attention to and talk to a pediatrician about, and potentially get some behavioral health support around. A lot of crying or clinginess more than usual for a lengthy period of time. Irritability or what we call acting out behavior, or negative attention-seeking behaviors. Poor school performance or avoiding school. And that's not due to screen fatigue. And I know that we're all suffering from screen fatigue. And I also know that a lot of kids are not doing well with the online learning. So that's something to take into consideration. But needing additional support or help, it could come in the form of tutoring or something like that. But it also might be relative to some behavioral health needs. Problems paying attention or concentrating for lengths of time, and then phantom headaches or stomach aches, because a lot of these sort of behavioral health or emotional or mental health challenges or issues that come up present themselves in this psychosomatic way, where people are getting physiological symptoms related to some underlying behavioral health challenge that they have. So I want to I don't know, Kristen, if it's good to stop here and then go over these tools and resources a little bit. If there's things that, if there are questions or things that you wanted me to answer relative to the Q&A or any chat.
Sure, Allison, thank you. I do have just one question, and then you can move forward with the tools and resources. The question is, aside from self-help books, are there other resources for people who have spiritual concerns but have no existing spiritual advisor or community?
That's an excellent question. I am probably not the best person to answer a question relative to spirituality, other than saying one way may be to just start doing some of your own research and reading about things that maybe you've thought about in the past, or if you have had any kind of religious, sometimes it's good to start from the religious aspect or perspective as just a way to launch. So if you were raised in a Catholic family or a Jewish family or a Muslim family, so rather than going into some of the, the concept of God or higher powers, just some of the ethical and moral concepts that kind of values that go along with that can be really helpful. And actually, as I'm talking about this, I am thinking of something which, Kristen, I can send you. There's an exercise which I've actually taken myself to figure this out in some regards, about what your values are. Because sometimes, like, what are my values? What are my personal values? So that might be a way to start. I don't remember the link off the top of my head, but I can send it to Kristen and you can add it in there. Just as a way, it's an exercise where you go through a whole long list of different values and which ones resonate with you, and kind of drill down to those that are most important to you in your life. And once you get that piece of it, it can help you guide you into how you want to be creating that sort of, practice, which can become spiritual, and how you engage in it around those values. So I don't know if that makes sense or helps answer the question, but that would be my suggestion. It's a difficult one. If you don't have that already in your life. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I think you answered it perfectly. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other questions before I jump into some of this?
No, the person responded by saying, excellent, thank you. So I think you can move on to tools and resources. I think everybody's eager to learn more information about
that. That is not an easy one. That is a difficult one, but I will send that link to you, Kristen, so you can add it into the resource document that you're
perfect.
You're going to send out. Okay, so that was really the more formal part of this presentation. I really just want to show you some of the tools and resources that hopefully will be able to get sent out to you. So first, this is an example of a self-care, self-evaluation with some expanded domains. As it says here, any area which you rate yourself at a 3 or less may need some attention. So, this is just sort of to check in with yourself a little bit and give you some ideas. And again, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of self-care rating scales and check-ins that you can find online. This is just the one that I chose for today. My strengths. People on my team like to make fun of me because I love my strength and I'm always promoting it. So here's another opportunity for me to promote my strength. Really what this is, it's an interactive web and app-based wellness tool, which provides inspiration and cultivates resilience and strengthens skills to support our mental health. And what's wonderful is that they're constantly adding new topics. A good one recently added is called Improve the Moment, which gives you simple ways to change your mood, which kind of relates to what I was talking about cultivating positive emotions. So this is just a little plug for my strength and has information here about how to sign up. And you don't have to be a HealthNet member. The community can sign up, and there's information here about how to sign up for that if you're not a HealthNet member as well. Okay, so mindfulness and meditation. So there's a bunch of apps out there. These aren't in any order of importance. All of them are good. I suggest if you're interested, downloading a few and seeing which fits best for you. And actually, now that I look at it, it is in order of which ones I like the best, because I like Insight Timer. That's my favorite. But a lot of people like Calm, Headspace, 10% Happier. So there's a bunch of them out there. These are all really great apps to try. And I know when we sign up for apps, then we end up getting emails, but I honestly do think it's good to just download them and then play with them and see which one resonates with you, because they all have different things to offer. I've also included here, UCLA has a wonderful research institute called the Mindful Awareness Research Center, and they have guided meditation podcasts. They also have classes you can take on they're called MAPS classes, Mindful Awareness Practice. And it basically teaches you how to practice mindfulness, including mindful meditation. So, and there's lots of different classes out there as well. This is just one I've actually taken myself, and I think I'm a big proponent of this research center, because that's where a lot of that wonderful research about the effectiveness and the power of mindfulness has come out of. It's come out from a lot of places, but they spearheaded a lot of work about mindfulness at this center. Then there's mindful.org, which is an online kind of resource or magazine, which has all different kinds of information and guidance and tools. So that's something worthwhile to spend some time with. And then there's this free course through Insight Timer with Jack. It's led by Jack Cornfield and Tara Bach, who are sort of heavy hitters in the mindfulness world and Buddhism, but specifically mindfulness. They have this mindfulness daily at work course. I want to say it's 40 days, but it's not, I can't remember ways. I didn't take it, but I did peruse it, and it looks really great. And they're both really excellent teachers. So that's an idea to help get you going on this a little bit. I also have a bunch of articles and activities here. So these are curated, meaning that either contemporary, they're about self-care and resilience. So as you can see, there's one about building resilience under that resilience heading. And then there's another one that has different activities and exercises. And then for self-care, I want to do a quick call out for men. We really need to normalize self-care practice for men because, women, we talk about this a lot, like getting our nails done or whatever, going on a walk with a girlfriend or, getting a massage. So I think men are not as accustomed to having these conversations or, having, being okay with the idea of what self-care means. So I just have a couple of articles and activities information in there as well, specifically for men. And then there's one here for you to do with your kids, sort of a checklist, and then some specific activities you can do to engage in self-care with your children. And it was interesting yesterday. I'm not saying I don't engage in social media, because I do. I just try to do it balanced. I was looking at something, and I was sent this post about, or I saw this post on my feed about this little boy. He was 6, and he was talking down his 4-year-old brother from having a tantrum. It was amazing. He just said, oh, "Listen, breathe." He started breathing for him, or breathing with him, and then within 30 seconds, his little brother calmed down, and he said, "See, look, all you have to do is breathe." It was really cute. So obviously, the parents had been teaching their kids, how to breathe to help self-soothe and help regulate their emotions. It was really quite cute. Okay, and then here I have at the end is just a bunch of different, I always add this at the end, resources and hotlines for people who may be in crisis and in need of immediate help. This State of California website is really great. They have a lot of good things posted there. They have some workbooks actually for people about self-care, I believe, on that website as well. So these are just some numbers if, needing some basic food or essential needs. Suicide prevention hotline, DV, disaster helpline. There's a crisis text line here as well. There's a national parent helpline. It's a warm line for parents who are struggling. And then there's a substance use hotline, mental health, the California Peer Warm Line. It's run by people with lived experience with mental health challenges. That's one that people can access for assistance. And then I have some here for the LGBTQ plus community, the Trevor Project, which is for LGBTQ youth. And then lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender national hotline I have listed here as well for help getting resources if need be. And then I think this goes back to you now, right, Kristen?
It sure does, Allison. Thank you. Yes, the next few slides I'll cover. I would just like to go over some information that is available to our HealthNet members, such as our wonderful health coaching on different topics such as managing stress, exercise, nutrition, and how you can get in contact with the nurse advice line as well. And if you are not a HealthNet member, I highly encourage you to check out your health plan's wellness offerings because they might have similar resources as well. Next slide, please. And then also on our website, our members have access to their personal health records, their HRQ, which is their health risk questionnaire, which only takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. And once you complete it based on your responses, it will prompt you into some of our other programs as well, such as our 6-week online health promotion programs, health coaching, and other wellness offerings as well. We also have healthy discounts to Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, fitness clubs, chiropractic. There's just so many resources and discounts available to our HealthNet members. So I encourage you to check out our website to find out all of those wellness offerings as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I hope you join us next month on Wednesday, April 21st. Again, same time, 12 o'clock to 12:45. The topic will be Good Night, Sleep Tight. We will talk about the benefits of sleep, common sleep disorders, signs of sleep deprivation, sleep distractions, and sleep in our emotional and physical health. Next slide, please. And I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, I will send out the recording link and resources tomorrow, and I hope to send out the presentation in a few days as well, because I know some folks want to look at this presentation and forward to their employees as well. But in the meantime, you can forward the recording link and resources to your friends, coworkers as well. But lastly, I would like to thank you, Ellison, so much for your time today. This is such an important topic, and I am receiving so many positive chats right now on great info and great resources. You really provided some excellent, ideas on acts of kindness that I'm sure most of us, including myself, can incorporate on a, daily and weekly basis. It's so rewarding when you do participate in acts of kindness. And just just setting some time for mindfulness and meditation, doesn't take much time, like you said, just 5 to 10 minutes each day. And then wonderful concepts and activities that we can incorporate into our daily routine and self-care. It's just so important to take time for ourselves right now, especially during this difficult time, trying to juggle everything that we're doing on a daily basis. So this topic came at the right time, and thank you so much for providing your knowledge today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's been my pleasure, and be well, everyone.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.